And I'm about to take it a step further. This exposes the Denver Nuggets.
The discussion surrounding Jokic this year has been, is he going to run down Shaq, Akeem, and Larry Bird in the all-time rankings?
It's a sweep. What? It's a sweep.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome back to the Dark Times channel. And before we get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel and you've been enjoying the content so far on this channel, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me as well. And so as everybody knows by now, Nikola Jokic, NBA superstar center Nikola Jokic, has just won his third MVP. And a lot of people around the league are talking about it. And people like Shaquille O'Neal are voicing their opinion about it.
Congratulations to Joker. You are the best big man in the league. But based on everybody's criteria, my criteria, stat stuffer, you guys' criteria, number one seed, which team has a better record, I felt Shai Alexander deserved it. Because I've been number two a lot. And I played my ass off number two. So the fact that he has to start all over next year and try to win it again, I think it was, I know it's going to be hurtful for him. Hopefully he uses this to motivate him to win a championship. But I thought, and again, no disrespect to the Joker, best big man in the league by far. You could have went this way, but I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of only a few players that had 30 points 50 times. Stat stuffer, great season. His team is number one. Nobody expected him to be number one. I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to win it by far. But congratulations to Joker. I'm happy for him. Third-time MVP. You really can't be mad at this vote. But the fact that he has to start all over next year and win it over again. Because, again, I felt I was robbed 2 or 3 times. Right? And I played my ass off. Stat stuffer, won championships those years.
And so absolutely, Shaq. No doubt about it. I'm right with you on this one. You were definitely robbed. In one of those years that Shaq was robbed, it was by Steve Nash, averaging a pedestrian 15 points a game and 11 assists. We've never seen a player in the modern NBA have those pedestrian numbers and win the MVP, but yet they give it to Steve Nash. Not once, but back-to-back MVPs with pedestrian numbers. And I've done videos on this topic before on how the NBA and David Stern in particular had an agenda to make the NBA global, and therefore they wanted some different faces as the face of the league. And Steve Nash winning those MVPs was directly following the Malice in the Palace, and so in my opinion, that was the main reason why they had Steve Nash win that MVP, because he definitely didn't deserve that one, and he didn't deserve the next one that he got. And one of the people that's responsible for Shaq not getting his MVP, or his second MVP, is the man that's sitting right next to him, Ernie Johnson.
Who's the MVP in the NBA this year?
Westbrook.
You got my vote.
You know, with the tenacity.
Oh, wait, you got a vote?
Yeah.
Shaq, you got a vote?
So hold on. The 2-time Steve Nash beat me out. You voted for Steve Nash?
I did.
And so notice how T.I. and Ernie are the only ones laughing. Everybody else on that set knows how criminal that was to have Steve Nash win an MVP over Shaquille O'Neal. We're talking about people's legacies at stake when you're talking about giving away MVPs to a particular person just because of the color of their skin. And I'm not talking about Nikola Jokic in this particular situation. I'm going to get to him in a second. We're going to circle back around. I'm going to slow walk this thing for y'all just a little bit. So stick with me, because this is a conversation that came up this time last year when Joel Embiid won his first MVP over Nikola Jokic. But at the time, they were talking about Nikola Jokic winning his third MVP. There was a conversation that was going on between Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick.
That the white voters that vote on NBA are racist. That they favor white people. You just said that. Yes, you did.
I did not call. I stated the facts. And you're not about to sit up.
We all know what you implied the other day. We all know what you implied just now. Hold on.
I stated it's the fact.
And so this is exactly why I don't trust JJ Redick. And look at Stephen A. Smith bucking his eyes. Even he can't believe what's coming out of JJ Redick's mouth. And this is exactly why I don't trust JJ Redick, because he knows exactly what he was trying to do. Kendrick Perkins was trying to point out the biasness that goes on when it comes to voting. He didn't bring up race. He wasn't talking about race. He's talking about the biasness that we all have. But pay attention and watch how JJ tried to flip it.
Perk, I want to touch on something that they didn't bring up. This idea that Dirk and Steve Nash were favored to win the MVP because they're white. First of all, you stopped short at 1990. That was your cutoff point for players to win MVP not in the top 10 in points per game, which is a stupid stat to judge MVP on. This isn't middle school. 1990, Magic won it. 89, Magic won it. 87, Magic won it. 87, he was 10th. 89, he was 15th. 90, he was 18th. Okay. We judge MVP year to year. In 05, Steve Nash was the driver of the number one offense in the league, a team that jumped 20 wins and had the best record in the NBA. In 06 to me is one of the weirdest MVP seasons ever. You could make an argument Nash probably shouldn't have won it, but he was still the driver of the number one offense in the league. The two best teams that year, the Detroit Pistons, 64 wins, the San Antonio Spurs, 63 wins. Guess what? They didn't have a top, their top scorers weren't in the top 20 in the NBA that year. So that was just a strange thing. You could have given it to Kobe. You could have given it to Shaq. You could have given it to Tim Duncan. They gave it to Steve Nash. It's not because he was white.
It was just a strange thing. It was just a strange thing that it just happened. It was just a strange thing. In 2006, when Kobe averaged 31, when he was playing with Kwame Brown and Smush Parker.
And what was the record that year? 42 and 40. They were 42 and 40.
So
let him speak.
He's the most valuable player.
They made the playoffs with that roster. You take Kobe off that team, they probably win 8 games.
And so absolutely, what Kendrick Perkins was alluding to was that 05-06 season in which Steve Nash beat out Kobe Bryant, in which Kobe Bryant was averaging 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and led his team to the playoffs. And that's in the same season in which Steve Nash was averaging 18 points a game and 10 assists on a stacked Phoenix Suns team. That's a Phoenix Suns team with a Sean Marion, with a Amari Stoudemire, with a Tim Thomas, a Jim Jackson, Eddie House, Raja Bell, Barbosa. That was a stacked team. And the team he had before that was even more stacked. And put Kobe Bryant on those Phoenix Suns teams and see if you don't win back-to-back titles. And so that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about biasness within media. What's the parameters? What are we judging by?
Criteria no more. I don't know if it's because it's the number 1 seed. I don't know if it's the number 6 seed. I don't know how you judging it. Is if we judging off of advanced stats or who's the most valuable player, you take them off this team? We don't know. We don't know, but we do know this. Comes to MVP voting. 80% of the voters are white American. 20% are other.
And so here we are, we fast forward a year later and we're still stuck having the same conversations.
Idiots get on TV and talk about who's the best player. It never goes to the best player. It goes who had the best regular season. You know, Shaq said he got robbed.
Not every year it doesn't.
Yeah, we know Ernie. Like when you voted for Steve Nash to win back-to-back MVPs and he was nowhere near the best player in the league. Nowhere near to having the best stats, but yet you still voted for him. I wonder why.
Well, most of the time. It goes to the guy. So, you know, Shaq said he got robbed. Player goes to the guy who had the best regular season.
Well, you know what? Don't name him most valuable player then. Don't name him most valuable player then. It goes to the most valuable player in the league. That was me.
It does
most
not.
Valuable player in the league. That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
All right,
well, don't name it that then.
let's stick
also,
to
don't name it that then.
It's subjective.
Let's stick to this year. Let me give you the results, by the way, because it really wasn't close.
Now that's surprising.
First place votes, 79 for Joker, 15 for SGA, 4 for Luka, 1 for Giannis.
None for Bronson?
No.
And so even Charles Barkley, who we all know likes to pander, even he was surprised by the votes. Kenny Smith was surprised by the votes. Now, it's not to say that Nikola Jokic shouldn't have won it. Now, in my opinion, I don't think he should have won it. I don't think Nikola Jokic should have won any of the MVPs. And I know that may sound egregious to some of y'all out there, but my MVP criteria is a lot more different than a lot of other people's MVP criteria. To me, you're disqualified from winning an MVP. You're disqualified from being the most valuable player in the league if you're the worst defender on your team. And so that would exclude a lot of people from my list. Not just Joker, but that would exclude James Harden. That would exclude Steph Curry. That would exclude Steve Nash. That would exclude Dirk Nowitzki. And truth be told, you used to have to be a good defender to win the MVP. Steve Nash was the first person to win the MVP that wasn't on an NBA all-defensive team. Even Larry Bird, when he was winning MVPs, was making second-team all-defensive teams. And so when Steve Nash won that MVP, that first MVP, it made it so that you didn't have to be a good defender. And not only that, it made it so where you can be a bad defender and win an MVP. Not only are you not a good defender, you can be an atrocious defender and win the MVP. That's never happened before in the history of the NBA. And so Shaq has a right to be a little bit salty. Because when we talk about MVPs, and I know everyone likes to talk about, MVPs don't really matter, hardware doesn't really matter. But it does, especially when you're at that level, when you're at the level of Shaquille O'Neal and you're in some of those conversations about some of the best big men of all time and some of the best players of all time, some of the best players to ever play the game. And so when you start to get in those conversations, people start to look at your hardware, people start to look at your rings, people start to look at those MVPs. And Shannon Sharpe even alluded to it.
Shaq should have 5 MVPs. Shaq should have 7 titles. And I think he sees a guy like Nikola Jokic that's not as dominant as him, and he gets 3 and 4 years.
Yeah.
And people are talking about him. And they talk about him dominant big man. But see, when you historically great, they talk about you as great basketball player, the GOAT. And Shaq is never brought up. When they say Tom Brady, even though he plays quarterback, they say Tom Brady is the greatest football player. Mm-hmm. Ocho, you and I debate. We say Jerry. We say Lawrence Taylor or whomever. Mm-hmm. But right. Tom Brady, although he played quarterback, Shaq is never brought up in those discussions when it comes to GOAT. He's never in front of Magic. He's never in front of LeBron. He's never in front of Jordan. He's never in front of Kareem. He's never really in front of Russell. When we talk about GOAT, those Mount Rushmore. And I think a part of him is envious of that. Oh, but he doesn't have anybody to blame but himself.
But do you think it's...
And so now with this third MVP, this third subjective MVP that Nikola Jokic has received, we're going to start to hear chatter about Nikola Jokic being in that conversation as far as GOAT conversation.
Who has been up to this point, LeBron, Durant, Steph, those guys, Giannis, when they all of a sudden have not shown up in the playoffs, if that has happened, they have gotten crushed. And even if they have shown up, but they lose, they have been harshly criticized. The discussion surrounding Jokic this year has been, is he going to run down Shaq, Akeem, and Larry Bird in the all-time rankings?
I can't remember the last superstar that we had in this league that hasn't had his game picked apart like Nikola Jokic. You can't say nothing about Nikola Jokic. Nobody mentions anything about his defense. Nobody nitpicks and breaks apart his game like they did LeBron James, like they did Kevin Durant, like they did Stephen Curry. He's probably the only superstar that I can remember that hasn't been nitpicked. Even Jordan got nitpicked. But you can't mention anything when it comes to Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is out here in these playoffs getting exposed.
And I'm about to take it a step further. This exposes the Denver Nuggets.
Right now, he's on the verge of getting swept. They got a Game 3 tonight versus Minnesota, and I don't see it looking any differently, and mainly because of Nikola Jokic.
Reed takes the shot. He has an hit. Jokic triple teamed. Once they go low, called down. Knocked away by Reed. 3 blocks. Knocked it away again. Jokic sticking with it.
And I'll say this about Nikola Jokic. As good as he is and as skilled as Nikola Jokic is, if you think about it, he really only has to play a couple of times a year. Joel Embiid, Wemby, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's about it for the most part. The rest of the year, he's playing bully ball because the NBA is a finesse league now. It's a whole bunch of undersized centers, and so for most of the year, Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, for that matter, are out here playing bully ball and getting the majority of their points against undersized centers. So there's no way in hell that Nikola Jokic belongs in the same conversations as a Hakeem Olajuwon, as a David Robinson, as a Shaquille O'Neal. You're talking about centers that went up against big men night in and night out. I don't care if it was the big man coming off the bench. That big man had some sand in his pants. That big man was going to be a legit big man, a 7-footer with some size to him. And these are guys that they had to go up against every night. Could you imagine a Shaquille O'Neal in this league? Could you imagine an Hakeem Olajuwon in this league? Could you imagine a David Robinson in today's league? They would have to change the rules again. And this is why I thought the Lakers made a mistake in not bringing back Dwight Howard. Regardless of the, off the court antics and allegations and things like that, if they would have brought back Dwight Howard, it would have been a different series. Because if you give Nikola Jokic somebody with the same strength, the same size as him, that's a good defender, he's not going to look the same. He's not going to look the same because, like I said, the majority of his points come off just being able to bully and back somebody down. And Nikola Jokic is not somebody that jumps when he shoots. He's not somebody that's going to get off the floor. And so a lot of his shots are easy to change, if not block. And so you put a good defender out there that's the same size as him, he's going to have issues, especially in a 7-game series. And I know it sounds like I'm going hard on Nikola Jokic right now, but I'm not. He's a product of what the NBA has made. He's a product of what the NBA has prioritized. But like I said, he's getting a little bit exposed right now. The Denver Nuggets are getting a little bit exposed here. And this play right here that I'm about to show you, this is probably going to be the last point I'm going to make. This is a prime example on why he doesn't belong in the same category as an Hakeem Olajuwon.
Porter goes inside to Jokic, knocked away. Good defense by Anderson. And Alexander Walker the other way.
And so you're down 1-0 in the series. You're in a game 2 in which the team is missing one of their premier defensive players and defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. And this is the effort that you're showing. This is the capability on defense that you have. Because Hakeem Olajuwon or somebody like a David Robinson, perhaps, if that same play would have happened in that same sequence, you better believe they would have made up for that play.
And a steal by Strickland, a lazy pass. Olajuwon blocked it away. Wow. Well, Hakeem.
That's what separates the legends like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem, and Olajuwon. You're talking about players that were not only great on the offensive side of the ball, but they were great on the defensive side of the ball. And so to me, this is what separates really good players from great players, from legendary players. You can't be dominant on one end and not be good on the other end. At least good. And so that's why I agree with Shaquille O'Neal on this one. I thought Shea should have won the MVP as well. You're talking about somebody who's really good on the defensive side of the ball, but at the same time, he's probably one of the best offensive players in the league. And then on top of that, his team had the best records. And so in my opinion, Shea should have won it. Or at the very least, the voting should have been a lot closer. But Nikola Jokic won it by a landslide. It wasn't even close. And so that lets you know that there's a little bit of biasness when it comes to this voting. And I'm not complaining. It is what it is. Those are the circumstances that, we find ourselves in. Now, to fix it, if they were to fix it, I think they should let the players vote. If you really want to know what time it is, if you really want to know who the best player in the league is, let the people who play in the league decide. Let the people who go up against these people every night decide who's the most valuable player in the league. Why are you letting these writers, half of them which never even played the game before? You got people like Ernie voting who never even played the game, and him having it his way, he's going to vote for a Steve Nash over a Kobe Bryant, over a Shaquille O'Neal, regardless of the numbers they're putting up, just because he wants to see somebody that looks like him. And it may be an unconscious thing, something that he's not even aware of. Or it may be conscious, you never know. But that's my take on it anyway. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. I definitely appreciate it. It only takes a second to hit that like button. It only takes a second to hit that subscribe button. So please do so if you haven't done already. And as usual, peace and chaos.